Hello and welcome to System Architect. I'm Scott McBride, and for this session I will be showing you how a business service maps onto technology components. The starting point will be a partial meta model of the implementation of TOGAF in System Architect. So I will start by expanding diagrams, class. I am opening the partial TOGAF meta model, zooming in using the active zoom. And what I want to show you is the set of definitions that we will be using to navigate these relationships. Zoom in just a little closer here. So what we'll do is we are going to start with a business service, as I have represented as a class. The process that realizes the business service. A process in turn could use one or more logical application components. These are realized by physical application components, and then those physical application components are dependent upon physical technology components. So the route that we're taking here is going from business service to process, that's a business process, to a logical application component, physical application component, and finally to the supporting physical technology components. So I'm going to highlight the path that we're taking through the meta model, holding down the control key, selecting associations and classes that represent the definitions that we will be navigating. Change the color and the thickness of the pen. There we go. So we're going from business service, process, logical application component, physical application component, and then physical technology component. So let's now have a look at the actual data in this demonstration encyclopedia that supports these relationships from business service all the way to physical technology component. The business service we're going to take a look at is settle insurance claim. To find it, I expand definitions, I expand business service, type the first few letters of settle insurance claim, I open up the definition. Now from this business service, I go to activities, and right here is realized by processes claim settlement. If I expand, another way to see that is by expanding settle insurance claim, and I want to see on which diagram the claim settlement process appears. How do I do that? I can right click on it, I go to references, and then over on the right side this shows all the references that the claim settlement process has to any other object in this encyclopedia. I can see that it appears on a business process hierarchy diagram. The 4 means it has 4 relationships on that diagram. I can open up the diagram by selecting the name of the diagram, which is business management and development. Double click. And remember, what I'm looking for here is the process claim settlement. I can hunt for it, but a smarter way is to do a Control F, which is find symbol, and then begin to type the first few letters of the name. So there's claim settlement as a process. I click on find, and I can see that it's now highlighted. I use my active zoom to zoom in on that region. So remember, a given definition can appear on any number of diagrams as long as that definition and that symbol type are supported by the diagram type. Now what's interesting here, and this is why I brought this up, is that this process actually has a child diagram that elaborates on the process flow. How do I know that? Well, we have the arrow. In the arrow, the down arrow means that there is at least one child level diagram. How do I get there? I can right click on claim settlement and then select Go to Child Diagram. That opens up the supporting child diagram, which is in this case is a BPMN2 compliant diagram. It shows the swim lanes, the processes, the gateways, the events. And now on this diagram, let's have a look at one of the processes. Let's take a look at the process send independent home assessor. And remember what we're looking for here. We're going from business process to logical application component. So I'll right click on the process, go to edit, and to find the applications that support the process, I go to the analysis tab, page 2, and then related items. So this is telling me that this has two application components. One is called client service, the other is dispatching, that support this business process. And as you've seen already, I can select one of these, click on define. Now this is the supporting application component. Now this is a logical application component. How do I know? It's because the is physical property is not checked. That means it's false. And that's how we distinguish between physical and logical application components. So now I want to find out, well, what is the physical, the actual deployable application that can realize this business function? To find out, I go to the implementation tab. You can see right here the name of the property realized by physical application components. I can expand this window, clicking on the button in the lower right. And the actual fictitious physical application component is the Acme dispatching and scheduling. Let's have a look. Click on define. And now you can see the is physical property is checked. This is a physical application component. Now the last step is to go from here to the supporting technology. So I go to the technology tab, and actually page 2, because I'm looking for the relationship. I want to find out what technology components support this physical application component right here. And there are two, Clientele 7.0 and Dataset Facility. So I've shown you how you can navigate the relationships among the definitions, symbols, and diagrams in the encyclopedia to go from business service all the way to physical technology component. Now let's have a look at some pre-built reports in the report generator that provide the same information. Go to Reports, Report Generator. The first report I'm going to run is business service to set of supporting processes to the business process diagram. Click on Generate. The report mode is a grid. So it's showing all business services. Some of the business services are related to processes. If I scroll down on the report, I can see all the way down here the settle insurance claim business service, the claim settlement business process, and the diagram submit insurance claim. Now each of these reports has also been written to output to HTML. If I select the HTML version of the report, I can click Generate, and that will open up in my web browser with the same information. And you can see the columns, business service, uses process, and then the resulting business process diagram. The next report takes us a little bit further. It goes from the diagram to the supporting processes on the diagram to the logical application components that support the business logic of those processes. So I click Generate. And in this case, if you look carefully, you can see there are really only two business process diagrams listed. They're listed multiple times because this is a tabular output. For each line in the table, I have the name of the business process diagram. I can make this a little more readable by selecting this third button to click to merge the cells. Now I see the diagrams. There are actually 3 diagrams, the processes they contain, and the application components that support those processes. I can see the same information in the HTML version of that report. When I generate that, that will open up, and you can see the same information here. A little more readable. Now the third report starts with the business process diagram, to the processes on the diagram, the supporting logical application components, and then the physical application components. Let's run this one in HTML. Starting with the submit insurance claim, processes on the diagram, logical application components, physical application components. So remember, we have a relatively simple example, but once you have these reports written, you'll be able to report on all of these relationships regardless of how many you have in your encyclopedia. The final report goes all the way from business service all the way to the supporting technology components. Let's first run that in the grid mode. I will merge the cells, scroll down, and you can see here's the name of the business service, the business process diagram, submitted insurance claim, processes on the diagram, logical application components, physical application components, and then the list of physical technology components on the right side. So we have multiple columns. I can run this in the HTML mode. Click on Generate. Much better from a usability and much better from an aesthetic standpoint. We have seen how we can run reports that show the end-to-end relationships between business service and physical technology component. Now let's take those same relationships and see how they can be shown diagrammatically with Explorer diagrams. I have 2 Explorer diagrams. The first one is business service relationships, all definitions. This Explorer diagram contains and shows all of the business services, business processes, logical and physical application components, and the physical technology components within the current encyclopedia. We can run Explorer relationship reports on this diagram to show the relationships using the same logic that was used to run the reports. Those relationships can be combined into a single definition, which we call an Explorer complex report. So let me first open up the Explorer complex report called Business Service Relationships Reports. I go to the Reports tab. This will actually run these 4 relationship reports in sequence. And the 4 reports will show the existing relationships between business services, business processes, logical application components, physical application components, and physical technology components. I can run the report either by right-clicking and going to copy on the diagram, or simply drag the report onto the diagram. So you can see that there are many, many relationships between the physical application components and the technology components. In fact, it's a little unreadable at this point, but there are some things that we can do. If I right-click on the diagram, I can go put it into a mode, hide relationship lines not attached to selected node objects. I can zoom out. I can select one or more symbols, and then I can show only those relationships that are linked to the selected object. and I can investigate this way. Again, it's simply navigating the relationships that are extant in the current encyclopedia. I can use my control key and select multiple symbols, and where those symbols have relationships, they will be shown. This is also good for using this in an interactive mode when you're doing briefs. The other Explorer diagram that I have is business service relationships participating definitions. And in this case, this has been built such that the definitions that appear on this diagram are ones that participate in all of the relationships. So this is going to be a lot easier to interpret. I will run the same Explorer complex report on this diagram. And again, I can explore any one of these individual relationships. I could put this into the mode hide relationship lines not attached to selected node symbols. And so, for example, if I look at the physical application Vibe data stream, that has links to 2 physical data technology components. Now, another aspect of the Explorer diagram is that the symbols represent the definitions. So I can double-click on any one of these, and it will bring up the associated definition. In this case, this technology component. If I want to reveal all of the relationship lines, I can right-click on the diagram and then reveal all relationship lines.